Hi everybody, Mrs. Houston here. Today's learning target is I can solve multi-step equations with variables on both sides. Okay, and this is the worksheet here that I am going to do an example for you. So I chose number 8 because it would get to all of the steps over here. So there's a little acronym to remember for solving equations. Don't call me after midnight. And that just will help you to remember the letters. First is D for distribute. Call is combine like terms. Me is move the variables to one side. After is add or subtract. And midnight is for the M for multiply or divide. Okay, so that's just a way for you to remember those steps. So I'm going to work through those steps one at a time. We're going to start with distributing. Anytime we have parentheses, we will distribute or multiply to get rid of them. So the -8 is not going to change, but this 2 has to get multiplied into both terms inside the parentheses. 2 times n is 2n, and 2 times -7 is -14. Okay, and at any time, if I'm going a little too fast, feel free to pause the video to get yourself caught up. On the right side of the equation, we just have a negative sign in front. That actually does have to get distributed as well. You could think of that as like a -1 being in front there. So -1 times 6 is -6, and then -1 times -3n, a negative times a negative makes a positive. So as you can see, that negative sign just changed both signs there. Okay, so we distributed. The next step is to combine like terms. And that's on either side of the equal sign. So if I look on the left side, I have -8, I have 2n, and I have -14. Now there's no other n's on this side, so that means I'm going to just combine my constant numbers, the numbers with no variables. And notice they're both negative. -8 minus 14. Think of it like you're borrowing money, and then you borrow more money, so you're going to actually owe more. So we're actually adding 14 and 8. Excuse me. So we're going to get -22 plus 2n when we combine those two together. Now, on this side, the right side, I have a -6 and a 3n. They are not like terms. One has a variable, one does not. So I do not have to combine like terms on this side. I'm just going to bring everything down. All right, that is the second step. The third says move the variable. Okay, so this is where you have some choices. You can either move this 3n over here with the 2n, or you can move the 2n over here with the 3n. Okay, the thing you have to remember when you're moving from one side of the equation to the other, you use the inverse operation or the opposite. So if this is a plus 2n, I'm going to choose to move the 2. So I'm going to do -2n. And whatever I do on one side of my equation, I have to do to the other side to keep it balanced. All right, the -22 doesn't change. Positive 2n minus 2n is 0, so I'm just going to cross it out. I still have the -6, and then I have positive 3n minus 2n. 3 minus 2 is 1, and it's a positive 1, so I'm going to write plus 1n. Or you could just write plus n. All right, that step is done. Next step says to add or subtract. So remember, our goal is to get the variable by itself, and I have a -6 here next to my variable. So the opposite or the inverse would be to add 6. All right, whoops, sorry about that line. -22 plus 6. So this is like you owe someone 22 and you pay them back $6. Well, you're still going to owe them some money, but how much? And this is where you subtract. So you could say 22, 21, 20, 19, 18, 17, 16. So that would be $16 that you still owe them. I literally just counted on my fingers. You could also use the calculator there. We got to be careful with those different signs. -6 plus 6 gives me 0, so I'm going to cross it out, and then I bring down the 1n. And this brings us to our very last step. Oops, I like to do my check marks. Our very last step, which is to multiply or divide. This number just has a 1, I'm sorry, this variable n just has a 1 in front of it. So technically you don't have to divide, but whatever number is in front of that variable, that is the number that you divide by. But we know anything divided by 1 is the same thing, so our answer is negative 16 equals n. All right, so remember, don't call me after midnight helps you to remember your steps for solving multi-step equations.